What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Celio's Network. Today is finally Vivid Voltage release day on PTCGO. Of course, PTCGO gets the set a day early if you have code cards, and you can also trade for the cards a day early. And then November 13th is the official set release for physical product, and you can also buy the cards with coins on the PTCGO shop on that day. So today is kind of the unofficial PTCGO release for Vivid Voltage, and I'm super excited to start building decks, playing with the new cards, and seeing how the meta shapes up. Today we're going to be talking about my predictions for the Vivid Voltage standard format metagame. We'll be doing it a little bit differently than usual. I've kind of made tier lists, but I'm also going to be using arrows depicting if I think decks and archetypes are going up or down, and then we can better explain why I have those thoughts from there. Before we get into that and also look at some of the new cards from the set, shout out to PotownStore.com, the best place for you to get PTCGO codes. Be sure to use code Celio for 5% off. If you're shopping for physical product, the link to my affiliate link for TCGplayer.com is in the description down below. I get a kickback when you use that link. And if TCG Player doesn't have what you want, maybe FlipsideGaming.com does, and you can use code Celio, all caps, for 10% off over there. I will be streaming content on my Twitch Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so I highly suggest following me on Twitch if you do not already. The link is in the description. Like I said, I'll be live Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm also giving away Vivid Voltage codes Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday over on Twitter along with Potown Store. So if you don't already follow me on Twitter, go check out that giveaway to potentially win some codes any of these days of the release weekend. Without further ado, let's take a look at some of the top cards of the set real quick, and then we'll go into my metagame predictions. So the main card I think we should be familiar with is Colossal VMAX, 330 HP fighting type VMAX with Eruption Shot. For 1 energy, it does 40. If the top card of your energies, if the top card of your deck is an energy, it does 90 more, and you attach it to Coalossal, so you do 130 and accelerate an energy. VMAX Boulder, 240 damage for 4 energy. This, along with a lot of the support that it can use, like Amazing Rare Jirachi, Aranguru, the new Snorlax, the new Stone Energy, healing like Malolana, damage amplifiers like Martial Arts Dojo. There's a lot going for Colossal VMAX. I wrote a pretty extensive article on my Patreon about it. But I will also have some YouTube content coming out for Colossal VMAX as well. Definitely a card to be aware of from this set. Aegis/V is a really important one because it gives ADPZ and Luke Metal just like a default tech to throw into the deck to get around Decidueye and Obstagoon. So this card is actually like possibly problematic because it gives Luke Metal and ADPZ such an easy answer to Decigoons, which was like something holding ADPZ back sometimes. Leon isn't a card I'll be talking about today when discussing the metagame, but a supporter letting you do 30 more damage is just something to keep in mind. Telescopic Sight is something to keep in mind because this makes cards like Cramorant V more powerful and cards like Inteleon VMAX more powerful, and it also goes well with a new card, Darmanitan VMAX, which does 30 to all of your opponent's bench Pokemon. I do think Telescopic Sight might end up being better in the expanded format, but it should also see play in standard and is something to keep in mind. Talonflame V is a cool new tool that baby Bulcephalon decks may use. I know they used it in Japan for the fast flight attack. If you go first, you can use this attack, discard your hand, draw 6. I'm not really sure if it's going to end up being better than Zacian's Intrepid Sword, but I do think it will see play. Zarude V is a potential addition to Agral decks, as well as Orbeetle VMAX being a potential addition to Agral decks. I did a Rillaboom Agral deck profile for Vivid Voltage on this channel, so be sure to go check that out if you haven't already. And Orbeetle VMAX will likely have some variants of its own popping up focused around this card, but I can't say I am incredibly hopeful for that variant to be tier 1. I think it could end up being like a tier 2 card or deck, but I don't think this can break into tier 1 right now, just because it's a little underwhelming compared to the cards that we do have performing very, very well. Pikachu VMAX, a solid card, way better in Japan because they have Electro Power still, and we do not, and that's why I don't think it will be amazing in our format. And I think that's most of the stuff I wanted to talk about. Any other cards we mentioned, I can always come back to here. But those are just some things to keep in mind when we're talking about my metagame predictions. So here are my metagame predictions. I don't know why I keep having this problem with this, but that's bothering me. There we go, it's fixed. Okay. So these are my metagame predictions. On the left of this black bar, this is kind of where I see the meta at right now prior to Vivid Voltage release. I typically don't like to use tier S, and this is just a general depiction of what I think the metagame looks like, how viable I think decks are. Of course, tier lists are arbitrary in their opinions unless you use data to arrive to your tier list, which I did not. So this is just my opinion, but this is how I think the tier list roughly would look prior to Vivid Voltage. And then over here, this is on the right side of the black column, I have where I think everything is post Vivid Voltage. So, and I have the movement either up, down, marked as a new deck, equal, did not move, or something unique like the Excadrill might just be replaced by Donphan. So let's start talking about this. This is the interesting stuff. This is why you're here. I didn't do a top 10 cards video because I feel like I've talked about like the cards I like so much, whether it be on YouTube videos and my Twitch streams and Patreon articles, in my Discord. By the way, join the Discord, links down below. We have such great discussion in there. But yeah, I feel like I've discussed what my favorite cards and what the cards I think have potential are so much. And there's also so many YouTubers with great opinions talking about the new cards either in set reviews or top 10 countdowns. A few off the top of my head, JW at Flex Daddy Righteous did a top 10 video that was very good. I know the people over at Channel Fireball have some top 10 articles. Rare Candy did a full set review. Omnipoke did a full set review. I'm not sure if Tricky Jim did their top 10 card countdown yet, but they usually do one. So there's plenty of that kind of content around if you wanted it. So I figured I would make something that's more akin to the content I typically make on this channel. Talking about kind of my metagame predictions. So let's start with the new one. Let's start with Coalossal VMAX. So I think Coalossal VMAX is a very strong card because of the fighting type support it has surrounding it. Like I said, I wrote an article on my current favorite way to play Coalossal VMAX, but I think there will be multiple ways. But I think Coalossal VMAX is able to beat ADPZ. It's able to take advantage of the fighting type weakness on Eternatus VMAX and Pikarom, and just right there, that's good enough for me. If it can beat ADPZ sometimes and it has a favored versus Pika and Eternatus, then that sounds really, really good. So I do think Coalossal VMAX will find itself in tier 1, at least in the early metagame, but I don't like to just thrust an entirely new archetype right into the top of the metagame, which is why I have it at the bottom of my tier 1. So I do think Coalossal VMAX will be new in tier 1. I do think it will be good, and I think this is going to shake some things up, Coalossal VMAX being a good archetype. So that's kind of where a lot of these up and down arrows are coming from. So Luke Metal on paper and in testing should have a favored Coalossal VMAX matchup. It is possible to tech against it, but in general, Luke Metal should be favored versus Coalossal VMAX. Luke Metal should also have a good time versus the other VMAX decks coming out, like Orbeetle VMAX, Darmanitan VMAX, probably Pikachu VMAX. Just all of these VMAX decks coming into the metagame, even if they're decks that are only going to be there for the early portions and then fall out because they didn't succeed, Luke Metal gets a buff from that because it's just more decks that it can full metal wall than wall with Zamazenta, and they have to use suboptimal attackers to get through Zamazenta. Colossal VMAX is also really weak to Luke Metal because of the energy removal, because Colossal VMAX wants to rack up 4 energy on a Colossal VMAX and then starts swinging, and Luke Metal can just get rid of all those energies, so that's an issue as well. So with Luke Metal becoming better due to that metagame reason, it also gains Coding Metal energy, which removes weakness, and it also gains the Aegis/V, which I discussed. You know, Aegis/V just being a really good tech to have. And so I think Luke Metal is going to be at the tippity top of our metagame at the start. So Luke Metal being really good means that Centiskorch VMAX and Bulcephalon should be really good as well. Bulcephalon is not only good because of Luke Metal, but just a format of mostly 3 prize Pokemon seems very good for a Pokemon that has unlimited damage output and is a single prize attacker. So Bulcephalon, some of its weaknesses are like damage spread or multiple knockouts, so things like Inteleon VMAX and Pikarom, or item lock. And with those things being less popular, I think Pikarom as well will be less popular with this metagame. That also gives Bulcephalon a chance to jump up. And another weakness Bulcephalon has is other single prize attackers that more efficiently trade into it, and that is like very barren. We don't have much of that at all. You see in my tier 1 and tier 2 right now. So I think Bulcephalon is well positioned because of the Luke Metal weakness, and also just because of 3 prize Pokemon in general and 2 prize Pokemon in general being good matchups for it. And we're lacking a ton of spread and multiple knockouts per turn, and we're also lacking item lock. So the floor is there for Bulcephalon. Like, I think Bulcephalon should be really good. Centiskorch VMAX, I think Centiskorch VMAX is like slightly favored versus Colossal VMAX at the time I'm recording this. That's my opinion, but hopefully I can make Colossal VMAX a little bit closer to even versus Centiskorch, because Colossal VMAX is like the deck I'm rooting for, and I'm trying to make as best as I can. But Centiskorch VMAX, of course, has a favorable Luke Metal matchup. It already plays Scoop Up Net Tina, so you can get rid of the Coding Metal energy. And Centiskorch VMAX has been fairly successful off and on throughout the Darkness Ablaze meta, and with this boost to Luke Metal, I think we'll also see an increase of Centiskorch VMAX play. We also have the new Orbeetle VMAX coming out, which is weak to fire, so that might give Centiskorch a couple more percentage points in the meta. The new Zarude V is coming out, so maybe Eggrow gets played just a little bit more, and that's one other little thing that adds to Centiskorch VMAX's matchup spread. So I think these 3 decks, Luke Metal, Centiskorch, Bulcephalon, were already fairly good, and they're just getting better due to new cards in Luke Metal's case, and Bulcephalon gets the new Talonflame, and it also gets Telescopic Sight for Cramorant. And Centiskorch VMAX doesn't really gain much, but it just gets better overall, I think, in the meta. ADPZ. So ADPZ, I think ADPZ actually gets a little worse. And what I can also see that from the Japanese metagame. Now, of course, the Japanese metagame was different for the Yokohama Champions League because they had Ultra Prism on instead of Team Up on. But I think ADPZ gets pushed down a little bit by the increase of Centiskorch VMAX, by Baby Bulcephalon's slight adjustments. So Talonflame V maybe makes it slightly more consistent, and Telescopic Sight maybe makes it a little bit more of a threat because it can pick off Crobats and I almost said Lele's, I'm stuck in expanded. It can pick off Crobats and Eldegoss a little bit easier. I also think ADPZ can struggle versus Colossal VMAX, but ADPZ is that kind of deck, as I've said many times. It can just end up beating anything, so I never count it out. So I just think ADPZ drops just a tiny bit. Eggrow Rillaboom is typically a poor matchup for ADPZ. Just these bulky tag teams are, like Mewtwo and Pikarom as well. I do think Mewtwo, I think Mewtwo decks and Pikarom are still going to be fairly good, but I think they will be played less. I think Pikarom will be played less because of its weakness to Coalossal, and also just because whenever we get a new set and new archetypes come out or old archetypes come back, there's just more decks to play, there's more decks to choose from, so people will be sticking to that one deck less, or instead of having 2 decks to choose from, they'll have 3 or 4 decks to choose from. So naturally there will be a little bit of a drop in population from other decks. Eternatus VMAX I think will fall down a bit because of Coalossal VMAX and also because of Luke Metal getting better. But Eternatus VMAX can prepare for Coalossal with Weakness Guard energy, so we'll have to see if that happens. Mewtwo Lightning, and like I said about Pikarom, I think Mewtwo Lightning might be played a little bit less, but also it is a fairly new deck, so I think it will keep its popularities and the people playing it a little bit better than things like Pikarom and Wet Mew 3, since those were older decks. Mewtwo Lightning still has a little bit of novelty to it, so I think we'll see it sticking around in the same popularity it's been. It hasn't been overly popular, but it has been performing very well. So I think people will continue playing that into the new metagame quite a bit. Mewtwo Welder, like I said, I think that'll be played less, as well as Pikarom. Pikarom I think is dropping down because of Eternatus. The Mewtwo decks in general, I think Mewtwo Lightning is going down to tier 2 now instead of staying up in tier 1. It's joining the other Mewtwo decks, and Mewtwo decks in general just tend to have a poor time versus Scorch VMAX, and they tend to have a poor time versus Bulcephalon, and I'm not entirely sure on my opinion on each individual Mewtwo deck versus Colossal VMAX, so that's something I'll have to figure out. But they still do have a good ADPZ matchup, and ADPZ is going to be popular regardless of what happens, I think. Dragapult VMAX I think has a shot at coming back up if Eternatus VMAX gets a little bit worse. The problem is here, of course, Luke Metal is getting better. So I think Dragapult VMAX could come up a little bit, and so I'm giving it some hope here, especially because it's resistant to Colossal VMAX, so that's something good to have. Dragapult VMAX in the past was good versus untech'd ADPZs. Dragapult VMAX in the past was 50-50 or better versus Bulcephalon, so we'll have to see. I'm giving it a little bit of hope. I'm also bumping up Inteleon VMAX because of its very good Scorch VMAX matchup, and it's 50-50 to even it's 50-50 to favored matchup versus Bulcephalon as well. And Inteleon VMAX is also getting a buff from Telescopic Sight, so we'll have to see if that helps it out. Eggrout Rillaboom. So Eggrout Rillaboom has type advantage versus Colossal VMAX, which might be good enough to shoot it up into tier 2. I think it was already pretty good last format just because of its matchup versus ADPZ, and ADPZ was everywhere, but it was kind of underplayed, and that's something you have to keep in mind. A deck can be good, a deck can have potential and viability, but it might just not be played enough to see those results, whereas a deck like Pikarom, 50 people are playing it, so it's going to get those results no matter what. So yeah, I think these 3 decks have a chance at moving up, so I gave them kind of a hopeful bump up to tier 2. As for tier 3, Orbeetle VMAX, I haven't seen like perfectly fleshed out lists for this deck yet. I do think it's a very awesome card and I want it to be good, but I can't let that influence where I put it on the tier list. So for now I'm putting it at the top of tier 3 because I do think it has a lot of potential. We just have to figure it out. Pikachu VMAX, I don't think has an amazing amount of potential, but will be played, and that popularity will kind of give it some results, I think, or at least have it be seen a lot, so it's something to put onto this tier list in the tier 3. Darmanitan VMAX Sandslash, I almost want to call it a rogue deck, but I think it's like such a known concept at this point, and it's going to be seen around a bit, at least in the beginning. Decigoons is dropping hard in my opinion because of Aegislash-V, so Decigoons I think is falling off big time. Excadrill Cinccino I think might just be replaced by the new Donphan. That's one of the cards I forgot to mention. So the new Donphan swings 120 for an energy, and it does 20 damage to each of your benched Pokemon. But the 20 damage to each of your benched Pokemon can actually be good because Phanpy's Strike Back does 30 times for each damage counter on this Pokemon, and then you could just copy that with Donphan thanks to Memory Capsule. And then you also have Stone Fighting Energy, so maybe you can even tank a hit with Donphan. You have Martial Arts Dojo to do more damage. You have Karate Belt to attack for free. So yeah, Donphan I think may replace Excadrill, and then we'll have to see if Donphan stays in tier 3 where I think Excadrill was, or if it's able to move up to tier 2, but that was kind of a weird one. The rest of these I don't have very good opinions on, so if you have opinions on any of these decks down here with the question marks, please leave it in the comments down below. Honestly, if you have comments or opinions on anything, please leave it down below, because I would love to hear your discussion. I don't think any single person's tier list is ever 100% correct. There's always room for discussion and improvement. And then rogue decks, I didn't really want to put any of these into a tier. So the new Charizard, of course, might see play just because it's Charizard and pretty playable. I don't think it's overly great, but being a Charizard will probably push it into having some play. The Whimsicott Garbodor deck, several channels have covered a deck profile for this already. It's kind of like a tool drop-ish deck. I don't think it's amazing, but it will see some play. Togekiss VMAX, I think it'll see some play in various ways. I just don't know how this card could be good currently because of just how underwhelming it is compared to the most of our standard format, and it also has lightning weakness, which is never good. But Togekiss does have resistant to fighting. It only has 310 HP though, so I'm not sure how much resistance even matters when other things can one-shot it pretty easily. And the last one was Amazing Rare Box, which is something that Rare Candy shared. I'll go check it out. It looked super cool. I'm not sure how competitively viable it is, because it looked like something you might need to high roll with frequently to make it work, but looked really cool, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it around a bit. So I threw it into the rogue category. So there's my thoughts for the metagame for early Vivid Voltage. Please be sure to leave your thoughts as well down in the comments below, and head on over to PotownStore.com to get your codes using code Celio for 5% off. Also, like I said, I'm doing a giveaway on Twitter tonight, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, so be sure to go over there and follow the instructions in the tweet, and I will be streaming Friday, Saturday, Sunday on twitch.tv/Celios Network, so look out for that as well. Hope to see you there. Hope you have a good day. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time here on Celios Network.